Thanks for coming down. So I'll just give you a little bit of background. Lisa Barnes-Epstein and I started to do these trainings over at the hospital because we realized that everyone, people were getting masks and, getting gowns and putting up signs on CDC how to don and doff, and nobody had actually been trained. We've been trained in donning and doffing, there's the once a year training, but when it doesn't matter so much, you don't remember so much, or at least I don't, how do I put one of these things on? Whatever, it was kind of fun in training. And Lisa, the nurse practitioner who I was working with, had done 5 months of work in Sierra Leone during the Ebola crisis. Oh, beautiful, thank you.
My queen.
Merci. Merci. And so she, in her 5 months doing Ebola training, she got really clear about the benefit of protective garb. She got very clear about protecting each other and protecting yourself. She stayed healthy and came to really value it and consider it a benefit and not kind of a hassle. And so she felt strongly enough about it and felt like she understood it well enough that she inspired us doing the training. I don't think that many hospitals actually have done the training. The head, Bill, who's the head of environmental services at the hospital, said he was on some chat with some other folks in hospitals in the region, and nobody else there had done any training preparing their people for being in protective gear. So anyway, so we did that at the hospital, trained all of the frontline staff, and then thought, let's bring it wherever else we need to bring it. So here we are. And the reason that I'm here with you guys is that first paragraph on the article. You guys get hit hard, Right now we're lucky in Vernon County. We only have one active case in Vernon County, but it's going to be around for a while. And the next, either later on this time or the next time around, some of the nursing homes may end up having to deal with it. And nursing homes inherently have people who are older, who are frailer, who have worse immune systems, who have more respiratory problems. And first of all, that means they're going to get sicker. And second, it means that they're going to have a higher viral load, which also means you guys are more likely to get sick. And so it's really protecting them, it's protecting you. And it's also part of what we wanted to do with this is talk about how to kind of create a culture of safety so that we support each other with doing well with protective gear and support each other with doing well with hand sanitizing. So the thing that gets us in the most trouble, truthfully, are these, because they go everywhere. You lean against a table, you scratch your face, you reach under your mask, you scratch your nose through the mask,
you sign in with the same ink pen.
Mm-hmm. Excuse me?
You sign in with the same ink pen.
You sign in with the same ink pen, exactly. And so one thing to think about when you're thinking about kind of your own personal culture of safety is where are you going to put your hands? And what we're suggesting is that people get really comfortable with kind of surgeon's pose or an at-rest pose of actually having your hands locked or your fingers locked together in front of yourself, and just like they would in a surgical suite, just getting used to having this be where everything comes to rest, so that if you start to go to scratch your nose or whatever, you'll have to slightly think about it. It'll slow you down enough that you'll be able to catch yourself. I read a study recently that said on average, nurses touch the outside of their mask 25 times a shift without noticing. We do, we all do. And so that's the other piece of it, is to keep your own hands out of trouble, but also it's important to help one another with it. It's important. This is the time when the way to show your appreciation and affection of your coworkers is to say, here's some hand sanitizer, you just scratched your nose, or whatever that is, or do you need a different mask? It looks like that one isn't fitting you well, or whatever it is. And to do that kindly and supportively, but to do it. This is a time where you have to try and set aside feeling like you're niggling or feeling like people are over-criticizing you, this is a time where each of us to give support is actually to give that kind of support, to give critical support for helping people stay healthy. So it's also time to hear it well and to try and hear it with as much grace as possible. Everybody's under extra stress these days, and it's easy to take offense, but if you can just take a little step back and hear it as they're actually trying to support you. They're trying to be grateful that you're here, and they want you to stay healthy and stay here. Another thing about kind of personal care and personal space is to think about having this kind of safe bubble, sort of arm's distance all around you. And start to try and train yourself to become aware of stuff that enters your bubble. So when you approach a table, just be aware that that table is there. This is something that could be contaminated. This is something that you could be touching, and just try and be aware of it. Be aware when somebody hands you a pen. Not that you're not going to take the pen. You might need the pen to sign something, but be aware that that entered into this sort of sphere of safety. And so when you take it, think to yourself, okay, I'm going to sign this, and then I really need to hand sanitize, and we should probably look at washing that pen too, or whatever you're going to do. But just to be aware of what's going on in here. The other group of things to think about is actually before you even come on shift, because these are kind of a hassle in that they don't let you drink or eat normally, and they blow air up, and they have your nose do funny things and your throat do funny things. And so really starting a couple of hours before coming in, you need to do stuff to take care of yourself so that you can also be a healthy, active member of the team and not just be dealing with things. So think ahead about when you're going to be drinking fluids and how much you're going to drink over the day. Maybe drink extra before you even come into work. Plan on how much you're going to drink at breaks and meals. It's really easy to get kind of dehydrated. It's not quite so bad right now. It's cool outside when it warms up. People are going to get dehydrated wearing these, so be careful and plan out your fluids. Think about your fluids. The maple trees are busting out right now, and so are other flowers. All the Easter lilies are coming in. Take care of your allergies ahead of time, whether that's, generic Claritin, cortisone nose sprays, kind of whatever you need to do, but do it ahead of time. Don't kind of get into everything and then go, I need to take care of this now. No, you need to start taking care of it earlier in the day. Goop in your eyes, goop. What I mean is moisturizer of some kind, eye drops, gel, something like that. Again, it's not quite so bad with these. When people are using the fan, the pappers, those are really drying because there's continuously air blowing. These are a little bit that way also for those of us with glasses, because there's always a little air shooting up. And just, again, kind of think ahead and get your eyes moist. Make sure that you're going to go into the day doing well. These, the other thing to be careful about is, well, two things. One is, think about everything that you're also carrying into the sphere. So think about your badges, think about the pens that you have on you. Remember that those really should get sanitized as well when you leave, when you come in. Think about sewing your pockets shut, because it's really easy to put stuff in your pockets, and they are a really dirty place, and then it's so easy to automatically put your hand in and have your hand get contaminated. So kind of zip the pocket shut, clean everything that you can on your way out the door and on your way in the door. The time that people tend to get contaminated from their protective equipment is when things have started to slow down, when the downtimes come, when you're heading in for your break, when you're heading in for a meal, when you're heading home for the day, when you're tired at the end of an extra long shift. And that's actually the time where you have to just keep reminding yourself to be on high alert, because protective equipment works, but it's easy to have a false sense of security because it doesn't turn orange when it has something bad on it, And so I can do some bad things to my mask, put it back on, and I think, well, looks pretty good, you know, I think I'm doing okay, when in fact you've already contaminated it. So things like don't dangle your mask off of one ear while you're getting a drink. Don't pull your mask down below your chin to do something or talk. Anytime you're doing those things, I mean, the pulling down actually contaminates it because you're getting it onto your neck. The dangling it is pretty risky because that thing could drop off your ear, it can just flop around, it can touch your hair. You want to treat these with respect because the surgical masks actually do a really good job. The cloth masks are reasonable and at least keep out droplet, and especially if they have a piece of HEPA filter in them, really can work well. They make a big difference though. But the problem with masks is that this is your best friend and this is your worst enemy. And that's the whole difference. And they're side by side. And so the idea of putting it, and so anytime you touch the outside, you want to clean your hands. You don't ever want to reach up under it to do something because you've just glommed past everything to reach up under. You don't want to be fixing it, touching the outside of it, resetting it on your face. You don't want to have it under your nose doing stuff because you're going to end up with a contaminated mask. The other thing about masks is, and really any of this personal equipment is, you want to think about what you're going to be doing when you take it off. So I don't know how your break room is set up at all, but when you take these off, you want to put it somewhere. It really doesn't work to set it on a table because if you put it this side down, you're contaminating the table. If you put it face side down, you don't know what was on that table before unless you sanitized it. It just isn't a good idea. It's best to hang it somewhere. If you have a locker, hanging it in a locker is a great idea. If you don't have a locker, if there's some other way that you guys can organize kind of having a place to put them. A lot of folks are doing their own bags. The bags are okay, but if you're going to be putting it on again later, you really want to do something like this to have it folded open so that you can just drop it in. If it's not folded open and it's kind of seals on itself, you're going to end up having it touching itself and folding around, and you don't want to have it contaminate itself in that way. At the end of the day, what a lot of places are doing for both these and the N95s is having a name and either the date that it was put in here, or some places will have 5 or 7 masks, and they'll have one for each day of the week. So you just put it in there. After 5 days, these are essentially decontaminated, and so if you have one for every day of the week, it'll be good each time that you start it up to use it again. Different people are finding ways to make things more comfortable. Some people are like getting a tie of some kind to put the 2 ends together with, or a paper clip. The nurses in the ER have done these cute things with bobbins or buttons on the side so that you just hang it over the buttons, and really kind of whatever works for you. If the ear parts bother you, find a way to work around that. Yeah, so Lisa has this story like 4 weeks ago when the COVID thing was just starting to rear up. She was at an emergency room in the area, not Vernon Memorial, she's very clear about. And there was a nurse who came out to talk to a family member who was the nurse was wearing an N95. And she came out and she was about 3 feet away from this family member, and she got tired of having the N95 on, and she pulls it down and keeps talking 3 feet from this woman, and keeps talking and wipes her eye and wipes her face and wipes off her forehead and does all this stuff. And then at the end of this close conversation, she takes the mask in her hand and puts it back up on her face and goes back into the emergency room. And it's like, well, she looks good, but it's actually now completely ineffective as anything protective. She was too close. Her hands are totally contaminated and she's inattentive to them. The inside of that mask is actually contaminated and she's unaware of it. So just try to be aware of it and try to help each other be aware of it. Let's see. Oh, you're closest to me, sorry.
Are you going on Facebook?
No, just Healthcare Academy, so the whole corporation will see it.
So, so you guys are using gowns, right? And gloves? And you said, Marina, that some of you are using the N95s and some of you are using
We
the
don't
kind of
use
duck
them,
cloth?
but it's you test and we save it
For in case. So right now you're just using the surgical tools, okay. And have you guys learned how to put on the N95s? Okay. So I'm gonna get you dressed with an N95. I'm gonna get you dressed with an N95. It helps to have a second person there when you're gowning. It's so much faster, and when you're taking off, it is so much faster. And I know there isn't always time to grab somebody, but it really does help a lot. One of the other things that we say is there is no emergency in a pandemic. It really, even though somebody is yelling in the room for help, you actually have to put on your protective gear before you go in. And that's one of the hardest lessons for nurses to learn, because they want to run in, they want to go in, they want to do that help. And it will help at that moment, but 14 days later, when you're sick and then your family gets sick, you'll be out of commission and it's not going to help at all then. So, yeah, so hand sanitizing goes first. So happy when Quillen started having them done. And with the gowns, again, you know, having somebody there who can actually tie it for you and back can really help a lot. And then, which one of the N95s would you prefer to put on? The Mickey Mouse one, okay. Don't you think they look like Mickey Mouse?
No.
So.
I can just, okay.
I usually have 10.
Yeah.
I got them. We'll see.
Right, yeah. So you always put the top one on first, because then if you lose track of what's going on, it won't be flopping around on you. And then you always fit the top nose piece. We suggest that you do it with 2 fingers to kind of bring it all over. People tend to kind of squeeze it first, and sometimes that'll make a peak on it. And then always, every time you use it, you're gonna do a fit test, a fit check, seal check, get the words right. And the way to do it with these is to actually use the skin of your palms to seal as much of that mask as you can and blow out to feel whether or not you can feel any air blowing around the edges of it. The difference between this mask and this mask is really primarily that these are sealed around the edge, so you're just breathing in and out through the filter. These let air in all around it so that you're not just breathing in and out through the filter, so you always check that. And then since you touched your face to your mask, you get to hand sanitize again. I don't know how these guys go on, so I'll have you show me.
Oh, it's a face mask?
It's a face mask, yeah.
All right, well, I guess we'll both win.
Okay. Maybe Marina will end up helping us, we'll see.
Here. And first one is just
Yep.
go around.
Just a headband. Okay. Great. And then with the gloves, let's see, hand stuff too. Really well.
Here,
Who can I give it to?
Your hand's dirty.
you
Yeah.
shush.
So with the gloves are another place where it's just easier if you have a second person to help. It helps if you pull the gown to about mid-palm. And then the other person can help get the gloves on. Otherwise, especially because your hands usually have some alcohol or water or sweat on them, it's just a hassle. Because you want to get these up above the level of the wrist so that,
Where's your fingers side?
there you go. There. You want to cover above the level of the wrist on this so that there isn't, so that you know that you have, that your wrists aren't getting contaminated. None of this is perfection, but we're after staying as clean as possible with it. So you get down, somebody helping helps, do your business, and then, now do you guys, what do you take off in the room?
Go, give you the
Thing.
gloves,
Uh-huh,
and throw it away, and go.
in the room, and then you come out.
Wash hands.
Okay, sounds good. So one thing you can do, again, if you have somebody helping you, you can say, hey, I'm gonna come out now, can you help? And you can turn around so that I can untie you. When you take off the gown, so, and then, yep, very good, yep. Try and get the gloves off so as little as possible.
And usually
Yeah.
when it's disposable, you just take it, rip it off and
Yep.
start to roll it.
whole thing, the whole
and then
thing.
whole-
Yeah, good. And it's, yep, getting it rolled in like that is good so that the clean part that has been against you stays all together. The other reason to do it that way, even, if it's one that you are gonna be putting in the laundry, is that you don't want all of it flopping around and touching the outside of the laundry bag, touching the outside of the trash can, where your environmental staff or your laundry staff are gonna get contaminated. Yeah, then you just, put it there. Now with this, the other thing is that each piece that you're touching is actually contaminated, and so you actually want a hand hygiene between each step. Just because the more you can keep clean, the better, yeah. So, and with these two, we like people to think ahead of time, where they're gonna be putting things. So if these are gonna go into the garbage, that's all organized. Is there a place that the masks and the N90, or the face shields and the N95s go, so that when you first walk out of the room, and just make sure that that repository is there, so that you'll be able to just put them right in, yeah? And when you take off the, go ahead, sorry.
Nope, that's all right. Which I know I could with the top by touching that.
It's this, yeah, at some point. And when you take off the N95, it works best, yeah, if you get 2 fingers in down there, and then by the temples. So let me show you a little trick, which is, when you have it on,
You know, these ones are together too.
oh, that makes it
It's all top and bottom.
So when you're taking it off, if you can get 2 fingers in, and what your thumbs are doing is actually keeping it pulled against your face, and then the top fingers help you to bring it over. Same thing for the front. See if I can separate my masks here. Ugh. Where are they? Yeah, so again, your thumbs are keeping it against your face, and then the top fingers are just bringing it up and over. So you have it really under control the whole time. It's not zinging around on your face and going places. Good. Thank you. Yeah, so cloth and surgical masks can both be put in bags for a week, and they're clean at the end of it. Cloth ones you can also wash. 140 degrees and oxystat or detergent, bleach can help. Part of the problem with COVID is this is a moving target, so it's not like one person has the right answer right now. Even the CDC keeps altering their websites just slightly about what's right and what's wrong. But in any case, hot water and detergent does a great job. If you have a HEPA filter in your cloth mask, take that out. because water damages that too. It, like even just first contact damages it about 30% of effectiveness. The N on the N95 stands for not oil resistant, which means your hands can cause trouble with that, so just be cautious. You know, you're going to be fit checking it, seal checking it, but just be aware that you really can't, you know, you can't, unlike cloth masks that you can wear forever, you can't wear an N95. We don't know how long you can wear it for, but if you keep, since you're going to be checking it each time, they do have some kind of lifespan. Everybody, again, is kind of making up what they think the lifespan should be, how many different days you should be able to use one. I don't know, your organization is gonna, I'm sure, have their own standard with that, so.
So the question I have is like, we don't have respiratory problems, so we didn't do the fit test.
Uh-huh.
But what I understood from CDC, that we can, if somebody volunteered to wear N95, so it's acceptable practice, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely, yeah. Yeah, if people prefer that, it's fine. And they kind of, it's worth trying out the different kinds, even though it looks silly. I actually like the fit and feel of the duck one better. It really has a little bit more air inside of it. It's hard to get on the first time though. When you first are using one of these guys, let's see if there's a good one here. These, the very first time, are really tight, like almost inside of it. You can see. And so the first time that you put it on, you bend these a little bit, and you really have to kind of crank at it to get it over your mouth and face. You start with your chin and bring it up. Yep, see, like that, yeah. Hard over another mask. And you just bring up both of them together, which brings you to a typical point of having to separate them behind your back. But these, the easy part with fitting these is that if you can suck in, you know you have a good seal. So that's handy. With these also, you're going to do the same two-finger maneuver of pulling it against your head with your thumbs and then using your four fingers to bring it over your head. I actually found it this time. So, but yeah, the first time, this one has loosened up since I've used it some. But these guys, the very first time you feel really gawky doing it. I tell people they should take it home and practice with it a couple of times, because otherwise it just feels totally, it'll start your day badly. It'll feel so awkward, so. So yeah, there's no emergency in a pandemic. It's time to take care of one another and take care of yourself and be kind to yourselves and breathe lots. Any questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you.